that providing scale that was, I guess, ingrained in my head through, school and different things, it wasn't working for me. We're sick of the rat race. We're sick of the idea that everyone was telling us. Every day for 2 years, we wrote down something positive. But when you're being a living epistle, when you're actively out there, searching for your true self or know thyself, you start to learn, like, wait a minute, fear is manufactured in our own thoughts.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jade Jones. I am your host for Mental Edge, a podcast by Conscious Athlete by Grit. I'm so excited to be hosting this podcast today. I'm here with Coach Joseph Swift. He'll say his full government name for you. I'm Jade Olivia Jones. And today we're going to be talking about his trip across the country off of faith and didn't know where he was going with his family. And it's honestly a crazy story. It just takes a different mindset to do what him and his family did. So, Coach, if you want to give a brief introduction about yourself, and we'll get right into it.
Joseph Anthony Swift, my whole government. Again, I always say this, and I will continue to say this. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm gonna take Mama Swift thing or Toya's thing. She always say I'm in love with love. Like, I love love and how powerful love is. Exercise physiologist is my wonderful new hat that I'm wearing, and I'm a mentor to many, and I appreciate everybody.
Yes, you do. And so this story, Coach currently is in Arizona. How he got here was not planned. This trip started where?
I would say Virginia.
In Virginia, you were how old?
Jesus. 28, 29?
28, 29?
Yeah. Yes. Don't quote me. But yeah, 28, 29, I believe.
And at 28 or 29, you decided with your two young boys that you guys were going to give up your life in Virginia and just travel across the country, no destination, and see what happens.
Yes.
And what ultimately led you to make that decision?
Me and my wonderful wife, we're sick of the rat race. We're sick of the idea that everyone was telling us. And I'll just speak from my perspective is, I would hear, as many hear, how to provide as a father or husband. And, you got to make the money. You got to do all those wonderful things and be a provider. And for me, not having my father around, I wanted to be around my boys. So that providing scale that was, I guess, ingrained in my head through, school and different things, it wasn't working for me. It wasn't effective. If you listen to the podcast before this, details was my thing, and those details and providing, no one was providing me with the actual how. They were just saying what I needed to do. And everybody's providing looked different to me. It was certain people who made good money, and let's just say I was coaching their kids, and their kids would say, I just wish my dad was home more. Or I would be with the person who was, you could just say not as much money as this other particular person. And they showed up every game. They worked hard, and the kids appreciated the fact that dad gave a huge effort to show up or pay for those shoes. And I didn't think one was right opposed to the other. I just wanted to do it my way. And being around my boys and being around my wife was highly important to me in order to build. And truthfully, it was in order to learn who they are and help the young men grow. So as it started in Virginia, we just, we decided not to just sit still when our lease was up. And we said, we're just going to drive around the country, across the country, around the country, however we, thought about it at the time, until we figure out a place where God wants us. Mm-hmm. So that's what we set out to do, and we did. So.
Mm-hmm. And so where was the first stop that you guys?
First, I was at my mother-in-law's to drop off some stuff because, as I was about to say Americans, but as people, we collect too much stuff anyway. So just to drop off some things that we thought we needed at the time. We still wanted to keep, I don't remember exactly what it was, but we stayed there for a month and a half or a month. I'm not sure. Again, I'm gonna mess up all the timelines, but
Oh, it's
either
okay.
way, we was there. But going there, I probably should share that the boys were homeschooled. Toya was homeschooled other young people before she even homeschooled our boys. But the boys are homeschooled, so it was more just starting them on their adventure of learning, visiting museums, trying to understand what this would look like. Because again, we didn't know when we were going to stop. We didn't know where we were going. It was just, okay, first off, we have to teach the boys and allow them to grow. And that was the biggest thing for me and Toya. So we stayed there for a time. Like I said, I can't remember the exact time. And then we set out to Georgia on our first farm stay with basically by ourselves, just us four on a what it was a lot of acres. It might have been 1,200 acres, and it was very it was the beginning of or I should say the official beginning from my perspective of the adventure.
Yes, and we do have a series on YouTube called Death and Taxes that does highlight some of this trip, but we definitely want to dive a little deeper into the podcast. We want to dive a little deeper with the podcast. And so we're going to start with that farm stay in Georgia. And first, where were your guys' mindset? Because I know you guys mentioned that you had together like mantras or something that you did every day to, keep the faith going, keep the belief when, doubt can creep in. So where did you keep your mind, and what helped you get through this period of time, or like keep like traveling and not settle and things like that?
In Virginia, before we even set out to my mother-in-law's, we lived there 2 years. We stayed there 2 years. Appalachian Mountains, which was great, right in it's Crozet, however you want to pronounce it, but right outside of Charlottesville. Every day for 2 years, we wrote down something positive. And even though we may not have had a positive day, we wrote down something positive. On the days that we didn't feel like everything was positive, we would say to each other, or me or Toya would say, at 9:46, it's 9:46 right now, at 9:47, our lives can change. And then maybe doing that for 15 minutes, back and forth, you realize it's thought that is allowing you to sit in that space. So for 2 years, we wrote something down. And when you're down in, now you could say, fast forward a little bit to Georgia, we're going off that faith, that commitment, that detail for 2 years. We're reminding ourselves, well, we didn't even really remind, it's more of a subconscious thing. Look for the positive. And looking for the positive was, it was easy because the boys were young and they always see the positive because they're not, in essence, tainted like adults, because they're just innocent children. So it was really, the framework was built in Virginia of how to keep going. Because when you say you want to do something, what I've learned is you have to be fully persuaded. And fully persuaded, people say, I am fully persuaded, which is great saying, but it takes time to know what the fullness of it is. And saying it is great, even though you say it to yourself every day, I'm fully persuaded, I'm gonna, whether I'm gonna win a race or whatever. But when you're now actively in it, like, wait a minute, I didn't cover that detail. We didn't focus on that. So we tried to cover every detail by writing something down every day. And honestly, it was already ingrained. So that's what we did. We constantly looked for the positive, even though we may have felt, and I want to say we weren't always in a bad situation. We may have just been thinking bad. We just constantly reminded each other of how positive, this life is, instead of focus on the negative, which is easy.
Yeah. It's honestly focusing on the negative is what a lot of us do, right? It's very easy to. So focusing on the positive is very important. And that, as you were saying, that carried for you to Georgia. It was Georgia next. So the farm stay, what was that experience for you?
The farm stay is basically, again, for mine, Toya has a different perspective, and again, I would love to hear her talk about it, because truthfully, Jada, we don't even really talk about it from our perspectives, but it taught me, because we had no phone service, we had electricity, we had no internet. It was just us, the animals, and the farm. And it taught me a level of patience that I did not know existed. And when you're waking up in the morning to feed the animals, or you're waking up in the morning because you maybe hear the animals, I realize you can't get everything done in one day, especially on a 1,200 acre plus farm. You have to take the what you controllable, what I can't control. I can't control the sun and when it's going down. So I got what I needed to get done that day. I learned that. I didn't happen on the first day, and then I moved on to the next day, and it was taken day by day. The patience of, okay, I got this done today. Maybe I'm sore today, and I don't need to do anything. And because there was so many tasks laid out in front of me, I had to be happy and pleased with what I did that day and really celebrate that. And that was something that I thought I had until I'm on the farm. Until you have, you know, a tree fall down and you have to now focus your day on fixing that fence that it fell on because the goats got loose. And that is your day. And you have to be happy with that. And those big small things were huge for me, because coming from, oh, every got to be done today, oh, I gotta get this done, oh, tomorrow, da, 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 you're constantly thinking that. No, but when you're fixing a fence and you're doing all these things, and you're slowing, you have to slow down to make sure the tasks and the details are done, and so the fence doesn't go down or the goats don't push it over. But that beauty in the patience, or that struggle to understand patience, was tough, but it was needed for who I am today. So,
Definitely. Did you ever dabble into like farming or taking care of animals like that, or was that the first time?
I was born in Oklahoma. I've been around, I would say, I would see cattle, see horses. As a farmer or being farming, no. Had no perspective. I watched some YouTube videos, like I do with everything.
What was something you learned from being a farmer and from watching over animals?
I learned that they're their own creation. God created them, and they will do what they want when they want because they want it to. And being around, and like, again, I probably should say some of the animals. So some, and I'm saying some because it was a ton of them. It was obviously cattle, cow. It was American buffalo. There was bison. There was ostrich. There was emus. There was llamas, pigs. I know I'm missing goat, sheep, and I'm missing some. But when you're learning all these wonderful creatures that God made, and you realize you have no experiences, you spend, and as we did, and I did definitely, you spend a lot of time watching behavior, focusing on the details of their behavior. Why are they eating? Why are they eating this, or why are they doing that? A lot of times, scientists, you hear science say, or you can watch videos, but you really, from my experience, you really don't know, and you don't learn unless you're sitting right there. At least I don't. I would say it that way, because I'm not saying you can't learn, but I definitely don't learn unless I'm sitting right there and watching everything. So I had no experience in it, other than you could say I'm a country boy, and I don't mind it, but for the most part, it was just me wanting to learn and wanting something better for the boys in the family.
And at that time, Mama Swift was homeschooling mainly the boys while you were farming most of the day.
Well, she would homeschool. The boys' task was the chickens, the peacocks, rabbits, to feed those, and sometimes the pigs or different things. And then homeschool was pretty much their schooling. And as anyone who, well, I can't say no Daniel now, but this was over 10 years ago. But Daniel's a dirt dabbler, as some would say, and he would be exploring everything and anything, especially the farm dog. That's what he loved. There was a big, I guess it's a sheepdog. But anyway, but she spent most of her time doing all the, I guess you could say the cooking and different things, because that was the other huge thing, is we weren't close to anything as well. Like, we were an hour and 15 minutes away from the closest Walmart, and we had like one convenience store within, I think it was like maybe 4 miles away or 3 miles away.
Wow.
So she was just making sure the boys were fine and what movies they could put on to watch during that day, and washing clothes every day. That was always something she did not enjoy, but that's something we had to do. So it was good.
And during that time, that's a lot of time together as a family and a lot of time getting to know each other. I think that's for a lot of people in a fast-paced world, and not many people are farming or, just really spending that time with each other to get to know each other. It's like this little span, maybe after work or on the weekends or something, and then and then you know each other, right? Know each other. What was it like just being with your family? Because that's all you wanted. And so how is that experience, just being together, being able to learn each other, and just being there as a family?
Being there with the boys and watching them, seeing the stars and different things, we learned so much. I think that was the first time Jaden and Daniel caught fish, because there was a pond on the farm as well. But you can't describe with words, or I can't describe with words as a father, how much those moments meant. Jaden being 19, Daniel being 16, they were obviously under 10 at the time, but it was those moments that I knew that we had each other. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm dad. Let's just say Toya's mad at Daniel today. I can take him out on the farm vehicle and have him basically chase the ostrich. And by the time, he's never worn out, but that would allow him to ask questions at his young age, at 4 years old. What's that? That's his biggest thing is, what's that? So having those moments with Jaden and Daniel, and Jay is a questioner, as if you know Jay. Being able to answer is something I never took for granted. The fact that I could answer their questions. And that probably is the biggest thing. I think when I really started to, of course I'm always around my boys when they were obviously even younger than they were at the time. But I started to kind of catch, like, wait a minute, I'm answering everything. Or just saying, I don't know, And then when I don't know happens and their mother's around, that's when it's time to explore homeschool. We need to find out, So that was something I don't know if I could have had back when we lived in Delaware. That time, just to be able to sit and explore and enjoy each other's company, and let them ask the dumbest questions and laugh about the most interesting things. So that was I do not take that time for granted at all. I still remember and think about that from time to time when I look how old they are now driving cars and stuff. But anyway.
Yeah, they are old now. I love hearing about this story, and I love hearing about you guys staying there as a family, and I can't imagine those moments in person.
She's having her own moment. That's what that
is.
Yeah, that's exactly.
That's adorable. Anyways, just tracking back to Delaware, though, from the difference between the pace of Delaware and like going to the pace of that life, what was that a hard change for you, or was it easy because you were just around your family?
Easy, simple around my family. And I don't want to get into I'm not going to express like, oh, do you have bills and all this stuff? Like, of course you have those things, but you have more of what you don't have, and that's time with each other. And that's what was important. It was like, when you're coming from fast pace, and I would drive to New York a lot for different things and business and whatever, but needing to be there and wanting to be there is two different things, in my opinion. So I didn't realize how much my boys and my wife, I'm saying the boys, but Toya knows, they needed me. I always knew they wanted, people, I want to be around, I want to be around. Like, wanting it, yeah, I get that. At that time, I was thinking like, yeah, I want to be there, but I got to go to New York, But Georgia taught me, or showed me, that the need was more important than my want. And because they needed me around to answer questions, or or a lot of times tell Toya to leave them alone, babe. Just let them be boys. Just leave them alone. There was a lot of things happened in Georgia that Mama Swift gave up on even bathing them, because they became older and wanting to be boys. If anybody has boys, you understand what I'm saying. So that was a time where I would just have to sit and watch them in the tub, just have fun, like exploring, of course, spilling water everywhere, but me allowing that, just sitting there and making sure to clean it up before their mother comes back in the bathroom. But it was that need, and I didn't know I needed that at the time. And they were, in essence, my path to my healing, and then having a wonderful wife to be able and be committed to raising them and homeschooling them and correcting them, because as fathers, I think it's funny, probably 99% of stuff you do, especially they would do, especially Jay and Daniel, they would do together. But then I have to realize, okay, we got to stop doing that, because that might be detrimental. And then Toya would come around and say, I don't like that, and I would have to understand, yeah, I guess that is something they shouldn't be doing. But that balance was what was needed. And I needed to see that balance and obviously experience that balance as well.
How long did you stay at that farm stay?
You get me on the times. I think it was 2 months. I'm not sure. It feels like it was 2 months.
Okay, about 2 months.
Yeah, I think it was.
When your time at the farm stay was over, was it just something you knew, or were you guys ready to go? That's
the hardest thing. We don't get that question a lot, but we periodically do get that. And I guess maybe I'm still refining how to answer that. It's the call for adventure. It was time to go. It was the time, in essence, the wind changed, the season changed. It's like, okay, y'all have learned what y'all needed to learn here, now you go. And that never, leaving Delaware, leaving Virginia, leaving my mother-in-law's, it didn't, at that point, I was kind of like, okay, I feel the time to go, but is that really what I'm feeling? You don't know that until you answer that call for adventure. And when we answered it, we went and stayed in Florida with my Uncle Osi, and we didn't know when we were in Georgia, but we knew when we were in Florida we needed to rest. And staying with Uncle Osi, timeline. I know the holidays we stayed with Uncle Osi. How about that? I know that part. The holidays we stayed with Uncle Osi, it was a time for rest. And we learned rest. And if anybody knows Uncle Osi, love him to death, wonderful father figure in my life. He is chill mode all day. So he like, we ain't doing nothing, fine. Uncle Osi's cool as hell. But anyway, that rest was needed, and that's what we had to learn. It's like you can have a season of need, and what we needed to learn each other, and then it was that season of rest, which was beautiful. And when the call for adventure happens, we started to, I can say this now, we didn't understand this then, we understood what it felt like then. We knew, like, okay, that means this needs to change, this season needs to change. And then the patience kicks in to allow it to change instead of trying to force it. It's just aligning yourself with the frequency, the love, the joy, enjoy each other, and the universe just manifests, the next chapter.
And so where was the next stop? Where were you guys going?
After Florida?
Yeah.
After Florida, we went to Texas. I was trying to think for a second. Where did we go? We went to Texas to do at a bird farm with wonderful Esther and Sebastian. And they had over 5,000 birds. And what I mean by duck, guineas, they even had pigeons, rabbits. They had all kind of stuff. And it was all for consumption. It was a organic farm who they provided a lot of things to the restaurants in Austin. So that was fun, being there learning how to pluck a duck and ring a chicken and different things. I've seen that as a kid, but I actually was actively involved in all that stuff. So learning how to not skin it, you don't skin them, but defeather, there it is, defeather a duck and defeather a chicken, and watching how everything is butchered. That was highly interesting and very learned a lot about food there. From Sebastian is a French. He's from France, and Esther's from Mexico. So they had a unique blend of foods and different things, and I learned a lot about food. That's where I learned my favorite bourbon.
Really?
Woodford Reserve from Sebastian. So I appreciate it.
Oh wow.
I don't think I've ever said that.
He loves bourbon.
Yes, I love bourbon. Love bourbon. Thank you, Sebastian.
Everything you just said is really interesting because it's like that call for adventure. And the first time you'd say, you guys you knew but you didn't know,
Yeah.
and you were like, okay, but by Texas you guys were like, okay, we know what this means when seasons are changing.
As that time progressed, and what happened is we left um, Palm Bay, Florida, where my uncle is, and we drove to Tallahassee. And it was early in the morning. Our and we were in a hotel because we're at a hotel, and the neighbor of our hotel, there was a fight, and it was police called. Everything, it was noisy, so it's like 2-3 in the morning, I want to say. And I got up and realized the two beds had bed bugs.
Mm.
So when I did that, I'm like, okay, we got to get up. I don't want to get bit up. We got up. It was early. It was before the sun came up, and we went down and explained the situation and got a refund for the room, and we had head out. And I was exhausted. But what it led us to as we were driving, I don't know how far exactly from Tallahassee or New Orleans is, but before New Orleans, it was a storm, and we just got past the storm. Or we learned as we were driving, it basically was divine for us to go at this time because it was
Bad storm.
it was a bad storm. So at that time, I believe, for at least from my perspective, things started to set in. It started setting like, wait a minute, I know that wasn't by my design. People you can complain that you didn't get no sleep. The neighbors is going through a fight. There's bed bugs, but it felt like, because I'm in a different thinking, different frequency, oh, that was divinely designed. And once you start to understand the divinity and the love and everything that the universe and God sends, you start to walk with a little more of a pride about, wait a minute, this is okay. So I am going in the right direction. And that's where and we didn't go straight to Austin, Texas. We stayed in some hotels after that. Through that process, I think at the time Toya didn't want me to drive more than 4.5 hours or so. So wherever that next stop was, but I can say now we believed. We didn't know yet. We believed, like, okay, we know what that means. And it's like, do we know it? But then later, as time goes on and as we continue to go on the path, and I'm not just talking about the path across the country to make it to Arizona, we understood, like, okay, this means this, and let's keep moving.
So when I hear you say that, it just sounds like, because once you had that knowing and, well, belief, that strong belief of, okay, this is divine, this is where we're supposed to be, does that just kill off, like, the fear? Like, of course it still comes up, but, like, what happens with fear?
Was it false evidence appearing real?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely wouldn't say there was no fear.
Mm-hmm.
You become, you learn, I've learned how to channel that, especially at that time when you have small family. We were on the side of the road, I think, in Texas before we made it to Austin. But I could be wrong with that. But either way, like I said, my timeline, it was a long time ago, y'all, so I don't remember every detail. Toya, correct me later if she needs to. But there was so many fearful parts, but it's like it was that squeeze. So we understood that we needed to be squeezed in order to evolve and advance and grow and get to the knowing. Like I always say, Jody's heard me say it 1,000 times. People hope, there's belief and there's knowing. We were stuck in between that belief and knowing, and a lot of times before, you could say back in Virginia or Delaware, we were stuck in between hope and belief. So that belief and knowing, I wouldn't say it was less fear, it became more reality on how to tackle fear. Mm. And how to eliminate and how to think past it and how to create and how to manifest instead of, calling those things that be not as though they were. We had more energy to wait, let's speak this into existence. Let's not just sit here and complain that we're on side of the road. Let's try to make the best of every situation and watch it manifest, watch it change. Mm-hmm. So by that time, I would say after Texas, we knew, like, okay, we can create anything over this. Remember, this is a short span. This wasn't like years. These were like months, and then a month here, maybe a couple weeks in this spot. But we knew that growing and advancing was based off our thoughts. Mm-hmm. We knew, obviously we know because we say it, but when you're being a living epistle, when you're actively out there, searching, for your true self or know thyself, you start to learn, like, wait a minute, fear is manufactured in our own thoughts. That is a easy thing to say, extremely different to understand for any other person. And that's the other part. We give people complete grace and understand, and we try to help the young athletes and the people we're around through that process, because we all have it. We don't think that we're special by any means. We just know, like, wow, that's tough, but let's try to give it a different thinking. Let's try to give it a different pattern of thought, and let's see how it can manifest if you focus on the details.
Wow, Coach, that was beautiful. And it really does. Because me and Coach have been in so many conversations. So many conversations about fear and things like that. But hearing like him talk about his story and walking through fear together, it's always eye-opening to see you in that way.
Y'all don't ask enough questions. They don't have enough questions, though.
Very true. And so that's going to bring this podcast to an end. Coach is not in Texas. He is in Arizona. So we've got a lot more story to tell. And we'll tell that in part 2 of this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to hit the follow button. And we will see you in the future podcast. Bye.
Peace.